On a day like today, the best walk you can take in London is the south bank of the Thames. We're going to go see the most surprising things that you can see between the Westminster Bridge and the Tower Bridge. The Thames River is the heart of London. It's basically the reason the city exists, as it was built outwards from its banks.
And while there are riverside walks everywhere from Richmond to Fulham to Greenwich, the South Bank from the Westminster to the Tower Bridge gives you a lot of bang for your buck.
While the tips of the route are somewhat annoyingly crowded landmarks, the walk between them features several interesting, historic, and familiar spots.
I'll hit all the highlights and show you some lesser-known places that will make you glad you took this 2.8-mile stroll.
So before we get to those lesser-known places, I'm going to start where I'll probably lose a lot of my local London viewers.
As you cross the Westminster Bridge, you get a real mixed bag. The good part is the absolute best view of Big Ben and Parliament. If you have the bridge in the foreground, it makes a simply incredible picture.
I don't care if you're a local or a visitor, it is breathtaking.
But then you start your journey amongst London's worst tourist traps, including the appallingly overpriced London Eye.
The large building behind me is County Hall. From the early 1900s, it was the headquarters of the local government of London.
Now the building is home to the Paddington Experience, the London Aquarium, Shrek's Adventure, and the London Dungeon, none of which hold any appeal whatsoever to locals. So you're unfortunately guaranteed to start this otherwise great walk amongst throngs of screaming kids, clueless tourists, and vendors selling useless items.
After you get past the major tourist attractions, you come to Jubilee Gardens.
This pretty green space was opened in 2012 to help celebrate both the Olympic Games and Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee. In the park, you'll find war memorials to the International Brigade and World War I hero John Dimmer.
It's also just a 5-minute walk to the fascinating graffiti arches of Waterloo Station.
After you pass a carousel and a few cafes, you'll come to the first of 7 bridges along the route.
This is the Hungerford Bridge. It was named for the Hungerford market that stood here in the 1800s.
Originally a footbridge, it was designed by London's greatest engineer, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. It was later bought and repurposed into a rail bridge. Footbridges were added to the sides of the railway tracks, but they were notoriously narrow, dilapidated, and dangerous.
But in 2002, those crap footbridges were replaced by the nice Golden Jubilee bridges.
One recurring theme along South Bank is the art and the performance spaces.
This is the South Bank Centre. It is the largest centre for the arts in the UK.
Designed in the ubiquitous London brutalist style, the centre features the Royal Festival Hall, home of London's Philharmonic Orchestra.
And in a typical London architectural paradox, right below the Arts Centre, you have the South Bank skate space.
On this walk, you're never wanting for a place to take a break and have a snack or a cocktail. Here's another row of pop-up cafes with great Thameside views. After you pass those cafes, you'll come to the Waterloo Bridge. On the weekends, there's a bookseller's market under the bridge. It's a nice way to grab some reading material if you plan on stopping and making a longer day of it. When you pass under the bridge, you'll come to the Royal National Theatre. Even though the theatre is another clear example of brutalist architecture, it's not part of the South Bank Centre.
The Resident Theatre Company was started by Sir Laurence Olivier, and one of the 3 theatres in the venue is named after him. Between the footpath and the buildings and the bridges, there is a lot of concrete around here, but as you can see, there's a lot of nice trees for some natural beauty to go with it.
Along with the aforementioned restaurants and cafes, There are plenty of benches and grassy areas to enjoy a relaxing London afternoon. This is in stark contrast to South Bank's early history, when it was often flooded before it was embanked. That's why the area was much more slowly developed than the opposite bank.
One thing you'll find on the route is a lot of great viewing vistas like the one in front of Gabriel's Wharf here, where you can see the financial district in St. Paul's.
Let's head over to Gabriel's Wharf.
And these are the shops and cafes of Gabriel's Wharf, which is part of the modern redevelopment of South Bank.
And right next to Gabriel's Wharf is Bernie Spain Gardens, another terrific green space similar to Jubilee Gardens, but much more chill as it's further from the tourist attractions.
And that leads you to Xuxiao Tower.
This was originally a power station, but it was bought by Oxo, the beef cube makers. If you walk up the dock next to the building, you not only get a preview of what's ahead, you also get a good look at the beautiful Art Deco tower.
When the tower was built, Oxo's manufacturers wanted an illuminated sign facing the Thames, but when the city refused, the designer created the windows of the tower to cleverly skirt that rule. While there are no real defined boundaries, South Bank is generally considered to end here at the Blackfriars Bridge.
Though the bridge was originally built in 1769, it was rebuilt a century later and opened by Queen Victoria. One of her many London statues stands at the north end of the bridge.
This dragon statue at the south end of the bridge is one of several that mark the border of the City of London.
This is a big commuter bridge, as it's about 300 yards from busy Fleet Street. The bridge also has a lot of stories, including one notorious one.
In 1982, a crooked Vatican banker named Alberto Calvi was found hanging from the Blackfriars Bridge, and that incident was recreated as a scene in The Godfather Part 3.
Next to the bridge is the Blackfriars Railway Bridge, which is really cool because it's a train station that's right over the Thames. Once you've passed the Blackfriars Bridge, you're still in the Queen's Walk, but the area is now called Bankside.
Surely you'll recognize this bridge from Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
They say that life imitates art, and although it's unconfirmed that the Death Eaters had anything to do with it, this scene came perilously close to playing out.
When the bridge opened in the year 2000, pedestrians immediately noticed something very unsettling as they walked across.
Soon after it opened, a design flaw was discovered which caused the bridge to dangerously undulate and sway. The bridge had to be closed for 10 months and repaired at the cost of £5 million.
But in spite of the engineering blunder, between the views of St. Paul's and the Tate Modern behind me, this really is a very stunning bridge, and it's one of the highlights of this entire walk.
And speaking of the Tate Modern,
in the year 2000, the Bankside Power Station was transformed into one of the world's largest art museums.
The collection includes works by Picasso, Monet, Braque, and Paul Klee.
As you can see, admission is free, so this is a must-visit for all art lovers.
Okay, on to a couple more historic sites.
Next to the Tate Modern and the Millennium Bridge is this small alley that notoriously led to a brothel. Now, I went there the other day, I don't need to show you that, so we're going to go next door to Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. So even though this is where the Globe stood, it's just a recreation of the original. I did actually go here to see a show, and I was much more taken by the authenticity and the architecture than I was with the show, but definitely worth going.
When you come to the Southwark Bridge, pass through the tunnel and walk a short distance to the Anchor Pub.
This popular pub has been around for 800 years. The Michelin Guide incorrectly says that it burned down in the Great Fire of London, but that's impossible because the Great Fire never went across the Thames.
The pub used to be a tap room for the Anchor Brewery, but after several updates and refurbishments, it's now simply a great riverside pub to enjoy a pint and good food.
So now you've taken a turn and you're walking away from the Thames, and you might think this is the end of the road, but believe it or not, you're about to see one of the most interesting parts of the journey.
There's no Thameside walkway between Cannon Street Railway Bridge and London Bridge, so you'll pass under the bridge and come out on Clink Street, named for the notorious medieval prison.
Next, you'll pass the remains of the medieval Winchester Palace.
And at the end of Clink Street, there's a reproduction of Sir Francis Drake's ship, the Golden Hind. Turn right at the Golden Hind and you'll be on Cathedral Street. You can go straight and you'll reach Borough Market.
I've done so many Borough Market videos, I'm going to spare you this time, and we're going to go down Montague Close.
This is when you'll pass the beautiful Southwark Cathedral on your right. It goes back to the 1600s and is quite impressive inside and out. Take a minute to go inside and see for yourself.
They even put on candlelight concerts featuring the music of ABBA, Fleetwood Mac, and Queen.
After you pass the cathedral, don't go through the underpass. Head up these stairs so we can get back Thameside.
We're now on London Bridge, and when tourists find out that this and not that is London Bridge, they get really confused and disappointed. I find that very funny.
London Bridge goes way back to the year 1209. It originally had houses, shops, and a chapel built on it. But as with seemingly every other building in London, it succumbed to a fire. The current bridge was built in 1973. The previous incarnation now crosses Lake Havasu, Arizona.
And no, the guy that bought it didn't think that he was buying the Tower Bridge. That's just an urban legend.
Now we're finally back on track.
You'll pass London Bridge Hospital, and that's got to be the hospital with the best view I've ever seen.
But we're not going to check in. We're just going to use the footpath and get that same view. When you get past the hospital, you'll be a short walk from the Hayes Galleria.
I think the Hayes Galleria always looks great, but it is just next level at Christmas time.
In November and December, there are two great Christmas markets on London's South Bank. One stretches between the Hayes Galleria and the Tower Bridge, and the other one is over at the Hungerford Bridge. Check out my Christmas markets video to see where all of London's Christmas markets are.
Now we're in the last leg of the Queen's Walk, and this is where it really opens up.
It's also where you get the first really good look at our final destination, the Tower Bridge. But first, on your left, is the HMS Belfast. Sometimes the Belfast annoys me because it blocks a great view of the Tower Bridge, especially from the London Bridge.
But it's a very important part of Britain's military heritage. It helped in the defense of the invasion of Normandy, among several other World War II missions.
Now we're back to a really busy area with hundreds of tourists, all trying to capture the perfect picture of the Tower Bridge. County Hall, which we saw earlier over by the Eye, was replaced by this unusual looking building, which is now London's Town Hall.
Southwark has a lot of old and historic buildings, so London City Hall really nicely mirrors the modernity of the skyscrapers across the river.
And finally, as you pass Pottersfield Park, the final bit of green space on the walk, you've reached the iconic Tower Bridge.
This is probably the world's most famous bridge. It was opened in 1894 to connect the 39% of London's population that lived east of London Bridge.
It took 8 years to build the bridge out of 71,000 tons of concrete and 11,000 tons of steel. The drawbridge is opened about 1,000 times a year. It takes about a minute and a half to open. The bridge's span is just 940 feet, so it's a simple walk, and is thus usually fairly crowded.
But it's scenic, iconic, and it leads to the Tower of London, which is what I consider one of London's better tourist attractions.
But we'll save the tower for a future video.
Well, we've reached the end of the road, and guess what? We are under the Tower Bridge, and there's a conveniently located pub here, so let's go take a look.
I find it cool enough that there's a pub built into the Tower Bridge, but step outside and wow! Not only does this pub's outdoor seating have the most amazing view in town, it's also where I met NFL legend Barry Sanders.
Thank you for watching. Making Starstruck by London videos has been the most fun I've had in years, and your feedback has made it even better. So thank you for your likes, subscribes, and shares, and most of all for your comments. I love reading and answering every one of them, and I appreciate all of you. Cheers.